Feel the real fear with us. Unsolved mysteries and horror stories.
Welcome back, listeners, to another episode of our Unsolved Mysteries. Today, we are diving deep into the world of bloodsuckers, vampires. Do vampires actually exist? Or is it all just a twisted fairy tale? Now, honestly speaking, in Islam, there is no direct mention of vampires. However, in other ancient scriptures and religions, there are some chilling accounts regarding this topic. And today, we are going to bring those exact stories to light. One more thing. When we look at modern pop culture, take the movie Twilight, for example. That movie caused a massive sensation, right? Based on Stephenie Meyer's books, we saw these incredibly attractive adult characters portrayed as vampires. But the real question is, are vampires actually that beautiful? That's something to think about. Anyway, the core essence of today's information comes from one of my favorite authors, Mark Brecky, and his book, In Search of Vampire Myths. You guys can actually buy and read the book if you want. It's written beautifully, containing the very stories I'm about to tell you on this unsolved mystery journey. He is a young, rising Italian author, and with his permission via email, I have the opportunity to present these facts to you. So, a huge thank you to him. Who knows? Maybe he's listening to this episode right now. So, dear listeners, before we discuss vampires deeply, let me say one thing. In today's world, there is a book that created a massive stir, even though it was written back in 1897 by a man named Bram Stoker. He wrote a novel centered around a cruel Romanian ruler named Count Vlad, widely known as Dracula. This book shook the world and sold millions of copies back then. It is said that Count Vlad was so cruel, so angry, and so inhumane that to kill people, or rather, to torture anyone who didn't listen to him, he would order his appointed researchers and scientists to invent new machines. Machines designed to kill a human in the most brutal way possible. I mean, pain beyond pain. A level of suffering that a human mind can't even imagine. And it's true. He used those very machines to inflict horrific torture and brutally execute those he disliked, or rebels and convicts of that time. Eventually, when the Turks invaded Romania, Count Vlad was killed at the hands of the Turkish army. After his death, his funeral was held, and he was buried, as he was a Christian. But here is where it gets creepy. Legend has it that after Count Vlad's death, people started finding livestock in nearby areas, dead, drained of blood, and on their necks, 2 large, sharp puncture marks. Locals began to think, some blood-sucking creature is feeding on these animals, draining them dry and leaving them for dead. Everyone wondered, who could be doing this? Some started whispering that it was Count Vlad. He was such a cruel, sadistic man in life. Maybe, just maybe, after death, he gained immortality from the devil himself. And through this immortality, he is continuing his killing spree. The people decided, okay, talking won't solve this. To find out if he really got immortality from the devil, they had to dig up his grave. They needed to check if he was still in the coffin. When they actually dug it up and opened the lid, everyone witnessed something terrifying. It was shocking. Count Vlad's body was not in the coffin. It was empty. That's when the belief became rooted in everyone's mind. Count Vlad truly gained immortality from the devil and is roaming the earth as a bloodsucker. Now, this might be just a theory, and there is plenty of doubt regarding the truth of this event. But based on this story, thinking about Count Vlad and the surrounding circumstances, Bram Stoker wrote his groundbreaking novel, Count Dracula. He outlined various characteristics of Dracula there. It can be said that since then, countless books, dramas, movies, and TV series have been made about Dracula all over the world, and it's still going on. Listeners, here is an interesting point. Throughout history, we've seen that sometimes when a sorcerer dies, other sorcerers collect their head or body to perform magic. It is possible that since Count Vlad was so cruel, maybe those who practice black magic stole his corpse to enhance their rituals. But that is also just a theory. Nothing is certain. Where his body actually went remains an unsolved mystery. So, let's move to the main part of our discussion now. Listen very carefully. I hope today's discussion gives you some new food for thought. Actually, when we say vampire, the name or face that pops into our mind is Dracula. The words Dracula and vampire seem to complete each other. Yet, vampire myths have existed in human society for thousands of years before Bram Stoker's Dracula. That means, while Stoker established this novel in 1897, the myth itself was already circulating long before that. Do you know how vampires were born in those myths? How did they spread? How did the first vampire come to be? We are going to discuss the entire vampire mythology in this episode. When we say vampire, we are definitely not talking about the sparkly, beautiful vampires from Stephenie Meyer's Twilight series. We are talking about the true, terrifying bloodsuckers. When Bram Stoker published Dracula in 1897, he established many of the modern vampire tropes. But even before Stoker, someone else wrote about them. In 1819, John Polidori published his book, The Vampire. It created quite a buzz. But we are going to look even further back. About 4,000 to 4,500 years ago, vampire beliefs existed in Mesopotamia. Also, in Jewish belief, there is a mythical character named Lilith. Lilith, either out of anger or being banished from heaven, came down to earth and became evil. Lilith is called the mother of all evil beings. All demons that exist come from Lilith. They are all her children. God then sent 3 angels to bring Lilith back to heaven. But Lilith refused to return. The army of God told her that if she didn't come back, 100 of her children would be killed every day. In revenge, Lilith declared that she would start killing human children. In Jewish belief, Lilith is portrayed as incredibly beautiful. It is said that she would disguise herself as a beauty and spend the night in men's homes. And when Lilith left that house in the morning, the man she spent the night with would not be alive because she would drink his blood. And as a result of staying with him, Lilith would become pregnant, just so she could give birth to more evil beings. Now, Adam had 2 sons, Habil and Cabil. Habil is known as Abel, and Kabil is known as Cain. We all know this story. But in other religions, especially in Jewish lore, this event is explained differently. In our discussion today, we won't go into baseless gossip. We're just trying to present the myths and unsolved mysteries that are actually out there. According to Jewish texts, after murdering Abel, Cain fled. During this time when he was in the land of Nod, or perhaps near the Red Sea, he met Lilith. Lilith found him shivering and hungry. She introduced herself to Cain as Adam's first wife. They started living together and became lovers. Cain realized that Lilith possessed amazing magical powers. And now, Cain wanted those powers too. When Cain asked Lilith to give him this magic, she didn't agree at first. After some hesitation, she finally agreed. Lilith took a dagger, cut her own skin, and poured her blood into a bowl. She handed that bowl to Cain and told him to drink it. And Cain drank it. Right after this event, 3 angels appeared there. They offered Cain a chance to repent for the crime of killing his brother and be forgiven. But Cain refused to take that chance, so the angels cursed him, saying he would not be able to withstand fire. They asked him to repent again. Again, Cain refused. The angel then cursed him, saying he would not be able to bear sunlight. When the offer was made a 3rd time, Cain refused once more. This time, the curse was, Cain would only be satisfied by the taste of blood, and this bloodthirst would haunt him forever. Dear listeners, you will notice that in all vampire movies and TV series, we see that vampires truly burn to ash in sunlight. They can't go near fire. They only feed on blood. There is a famous movie called I Am Legend with Will Smith. You'll see there too. People infected by a virus become zombie-like, but they can't come out during the day, only at night. From the story of Cain, Lilith, and the 3 angels, we learn where these vampire characteristics actually come from. Anyway, as time passed, Cain's power began to grow. At one point, he left Lilith and went out to roam again. He couldn't stay in one place for long. The immortal Cain eventually reached a settlement called Ubar. Living there were the descendants of his brother Seth, or Prophet Shear, and the ruler of that settlement was Enoch. Here, Cain became known as the Dark Father. After killing his brother, God had cursed Cain that he would roam the earth forever. Death would not save him. To keep him from dying, a mark was placed on Cain's body, known as the Mark of Cain. People knew that harming him was forbidden when they saw this mark. They recognized him by it. Seeing his power grow, day by day, the townspeople eventually started worshiping Cain. Enoch had to give up his throne for him. Legend has it that one evening, watching a young couple in love awakened inside Cain too. He summoned them and gave them the gift of immortality. In other words, he turned them into vampires. But when this couple discovered that because of being vampires, they could never have children, they decided not to continue this life. They walked into the scorching sunlight to commit suicide and burned to ashes. Seeing their death, Cain, in his grief, forbade the utterance of their names. The former king, Enoch, wanted this supernatural power from Cain. Cain refused at first, but then he gave in. Enoch emerged as a new vampire. In Enoch's honor, Cain named the city of Enoch. Enoch wanted more brothers like him, who had this power. So, Cain created many more vampires. The city of Enoch was very advanced, as described in the legends. But Noah's great flood destroyed that city. However, the story also explains why vampires weren't destroyed. Because one of Enoch's descendants was on Noah's Ark. It is worth mentioning that according to Jewish and Christian theology, God sent the Great Flood specifically to protect the earth from these evil beings. Also, destroying the Nephilim race, created from the union of humans and fallen angels, was one of the main reasons. In Albania, this blood-sucking species is known as striga, in Greece as vrikolakas, and in Romania as strigoi. In ancient Greece, it was believed that King Baelus's daughter, Lamia, was the secret lover of the god Zeus. When Zeus's wife, the goddess Hera, found out about Lamia, she killed all of Lamia's children. In revenge, Lamia turned into a vampire and would drink the blood of children at night. It is also said that the goddess Hecate's daughter, Empusa, was a vampire. In medieval Europe, the fear of vampires was so intense that corpses were staked through the heart, because it was believed this would stop them from returning as vampires. The situation became so extreme that even ordinary people were accused of being vampires and were executed. While Bram Stoker turned Count Vlad into a vampire in his novel due to his cruelty, historically, he wasn't called a vampire before that. Another common synonym for vampire is Nosferatu. This word originates from Hungarian-Romanian roots. There are thousands of novels written and hundreds of films made about vampires. However, even though in this modern age vampires are seen as glamorous models or heroes, we must not forget how terrifying they were in traditional folklore. Dear listeners, in today's Unsolved Mystery, we presented some information regarding vampires. But let's not forget, all the events mentioned here, or the stories I've collected, are not established facts. They are myths. However, in some places, reports of vampire presence are still heard. Yet no such evidence has been caught on camera so far. It remains an unsolved mystery. So, we will say, if this unsolved mystery ever gets caught on your camera, definitely feel free to contact me. Dear listeners, I hope you enjoyed today's information about vampires. I will be present before you again in a future episode with another unsolved mystery or event. Until then, stay safe, stay well.